Now that we have our first cutout ready, it's really easy to make another one, and that's why I moved this Boolean object in the edit mode so the origin point stays in the middle. And right now we can select the Boolean object and add a modifier and add the mirror modifier and switch the axis to Y and turn off X. And this will mirror the object on the other side, and the Boolean modifier applies the whole object in its modifiers to the result, so it just works on the other side as well. And now to make this even more symmetrical, we can press Alt D to duplicate this object, press enter, and now just press R, Z to rotate on the Z axis, and let's enter 90 degrees. So we just created a linked duplicate of the Boolean object. If you go into the edit mode, it's still there, and it has that mirror modifier. But to actually make another cutout using this object, we'll need to add another Boolean modifier to the create object. So again, we'll just shift select the create here and press Ctrl- again, the bool tool shortcut, and you can see right now the shading is all broken here, and that's because when we use the bool tool, let me just collapse the bool modifier here on the crate, you can see another Boolean modifier was added, but it's added after the bevel modifier. So to fix this, we just need to fix the modifier stack, and right now in the 2.9 there are no arrows here to move the modifiers in the stack. You just click and hold here and drag it above the bevel modifier, and you know that will fix the order and it all works out just fine. So most of the time when using Boolean modifier, it's all about just applying some Boolean operation and then fixing the stack so the bevel modifier is at the top here. Be careful not to use another subdivision modifier after the bevel, because as I said before, there are a lot of n-gons. The geometry is not made out of quad, so we are only using the subdivision modifier to define the first shape of the object, and then all the Boolean modifiers and the bevel modifier as last. So that's just something to keep in mind. And now we can move on and make this crate a little bit more interesting. I want to make some cutouts here in the middle. And what we can do is to reuse some of the geometry to create some objects that we'll use for those cutouts. So right now, let me just press Shift D to duplicate this crate. Let's press enter. And we can see here in the outliner, there's a new object created here. And now we can remove the bevel and the Boolean modifier there. We just want the original crate object, and we want to apply that subdivision modifier. So click on this arrow and hit apply. And now we can go into the edit mode. Let's zoom in a little bit. And I want to select some of these loops here. So let me go to the face select. And right here we can see these two loops. So I want the first loop that's not part of the radius here. So I will select this one here, and here on the other side as well. So Alt Shift click here and select these two loops. And now I will press Shift D to duplicate and P to separate. And now we can just select the duplicated object, press X and delete. We don't need that anymore. I just wanted to extract these two loops out of the shape. And let's now go into the edit mode. So press tab to enter the edit mode. Select both of these loops by pressing A. And let's look from the top by pressing 7 on a numpad. Toggle the X-ray. And now we can scale it with S and press Shift Z to isolate this on X and Y axis and push this a little bit inside. And we are basically defining how deep we want to cut here. So I guess something like this will be fine. And now we can rotate this, exit the X-ray and press Alt E and extrude faces along normals until they come out like this. So we'll use this object to cut into the crate. So right now we can tab out, shift click the crate and press Ctrl- to create that cutout. And of course we'll need to fix the stack again. So drag this new Boolean modifier above the bevel. And we can see the topology got broken a little bit. That's because these loops are same height as the loops on the original crate, so there's some overlapping happening, and we can easily fix that by selecting the Boolean object, going into the edit mode, and let's select all, and I will hold period key here to switch the pivot point, and switch these to individual origins. You can do this here as well. And now let's enable wireframe overlay so we can see the topology, and press S and Z to scale this up until the problems disappear like this. So we get rid of those overlaps, and now we have much cleaner topology here. So I'm quite satisfied with this, and we'll now finish this up by adding some interesting locking mechanism here or something. So let's add a cursor here in the front. So go into the edit mode, and for example we can select this vertex right here, hold Shift S and snap cursor to select it. Now we will tab out, press Shift A and add a cube here, go into the edit mode and press S to scale this down. And again, we are looking for a size that doesn't intersect with anything here. So I think something like this could work, but we'll see once we bevel this out. And now let's go to the edge select. So press 2 and I will hold Alt, Control and click here. That way we are selecting the edges along this phase loop around. And now I want to bevel this. So let's press Ctrl B and let's do a bevel. And let's use the mouse wheel to increase number of segments to something like 6 or 5. I think 5 will be enough. And let's place them in a way that they don't interfere with the original mesh. So I guess something like this. And I was looking right here. So that's the most conflicting place I can see there. So this is the bevel right here. And right now we can tab out, right click and shade smooth. As you can remember, we need the Boolean object to be smooth shaded as well. And now shift click the crate and let's press Ctrl minus to subtract, and we'll fix the modifier. So as you can see, this is getting quite easy. It's quite a recurring task to actually use the bool tool, fix the stack and look at the wireframe overlay if we didn't break anything. So that's the workflow we are getting used to right now. And I can see a little bit of a shading issue right here. So let's see what we can do about that. And right now we can select all and scale this down a little. And at the same time, I don't want to break anything up here. So let me turn off the wireframe view. I can still see some issue there. So let's continue the tweaks. I will enable wireframe overlay and maybe let's go a little bit larger here. So something like this might work. Let's see. Okay, I think that looks quite all right. No shading issues there whatsoever. So I guess this works fine. And optionally, if you want to play around with this, you can also play with the bevel size. So you can always like reduce the amount of the bevel. I reduced this to something like 0.006. So maybe if we try this now, it can work better with the original size. Okay, yeah, I really like this. So again, go ahead, play a while with this. And as I said before, this is not an exact method, so you will have to play around a lot with the size and the position of these Boolean objects to get the final results. If you, for some reason, need some exact proportions, you will have to account for that with your topology. For example, if you really need it to have this in some particular size, you would have to go ahead and rethink how dense the topology on the crate is, so you don't get these overlapping edges and stuff like that. So right now we can continue and add one more object here. So I will press Shift A and add a cube, enter edit mode and scale this down so it fills the hole here a little bit better. And now I want to move this in place, so let's look from the top by pressing 7, and while in the edit mode we can just press G then Y and move this a little bit inside, something like this maybe, and then select the front face. So hit 3 to go to the face select this front face, and we'll press Ctrl B for bevel and reduce this to just one bevel like this. And now tab out, enable smooth shading here and shift click the crate, and we will use another shortcut. We'll use Ctrl+. We want to add to the object, we don't want to subtract, so Ctrl+. And again, we'll need to fix the modifier stack. So just drag this above the bevel modifier. And this is not what we expected here, and that's due to the angles on the bevel modifier there. Sometimes you can expect issues like this, so we can expand the bevel options here and try to find the angle. If we can't find the angle that works for all of these edges, we'll have to modify the geometry a little bit. So let's just try to reduce the angle here, and something like 44 degrees was enough to include these bevels here. So this is the result I wanted. So this is getting a little bit more complicated here in the modifier stack, but don't worry about this. We'll actually add one more object here. So let's press Shift A and add another cube, and we'll go into the edit mode, scale this down and leave it like this, I guess. And now tab out, shade smooth again, and shift click the crate object, and we'll use yet another operator, and one of my favorites, we'll use the Ctrl/ on the numpad. So Ctrl/. So this is actually combination of two things. Here the bool tool takes it a little bit further for us and doesn't just create the Boolean operation, but actually duplicates the original object and creates two modifiers. One is set in the difference mode and one is set in the intersect mode. So if we export this right now, we have the crate object, but here we have another object, but you can see all those modifiers are still there. So what bool tool did, it just created a link duplicate of this whole crate object and applied a difference modifier with that cube operator. But it left the original object in place too, right here, and the Boolean is intersect. So it's basically the middle product of those two objects, the crate and the new Boolean. So this way we can create, for example, panels and stuff like that, but here we'll have to fix two modifier stacks. So select the cube here in the middle, fix the stack there, and select the crate object and fix the stack there as well. And what that'll create is this nice cutout, this nice panel, which is very useful technique when you're modeling hard surface design for some sci-fi themes or spaceships or something like that. There are a lot of panels you need to create on the walls, for example, or something like that. So this is the way you can use the bool tool to quickly cut out any panel from objects. And now if we zoom out and disable the wireframe overlay, and let me just toggle the overlays all together, this is our resulting object, and it will be very difficult to create this kind of geometry, this kind of object, just by using the mesh tools. Of course, it's doable, and for example, if you would need to take this into a game or something like that, and you would need to convert this into a single clean topology, you would probably need to apply all of those modifiers and fix all of those n-gons, or you can retopologize. That means creating a new topology and using snapping to actually create a whole new geometry based on this template. And that's how it's basically done in the industry. So you can do this quick Boolean prototyping first, and then you can decide how you are going to optimize this model, simplify, and create a clean topology. So yeah, congratulations on this first hard surface model using the Boolean techniques. Right now I will enable those overlays again, and to make things a little bit simpler and cleaner, because we'll be using a lot of booleans, a lot of objects throughout the episode, and you can already see with the simple object like the crate here, the outliner is getting cluttered, and since we didn't name any of these objects, this would get out of hand pretty quickly. So first thing we can do is to select all and just parent it to the crate. So make sure the crate is highlighted yellow, press Ctrl P and parent to the object. So this way we just have a single object here in the outliner, and we can rename this to crate. And the second thing we can do is to just select these Boolean objects separately. So I'm holding Shift and selecting all of these objects, one here and the cube as last. And now we can press M and create a new collection, and let's call this bools. Click OK. So this way we have created a new collection for only the booleans. They're still parented to the crate object, but they're in the different collections. So if you want to have a cleaner view of your scenes and you don't want to see all those model cages, you can just disable the bools collection, and we have one more here. So I will press M and move this into the bools collection. And this is the way we can keep our scene tidy. And the second thing I want to do, since we are going to create that whole room scene here, I don't want the crate to get in the way. And let's just select all we can see here, press M, and let's create a new collection. And let's call these assets. So we have some collection for some side assets we can use later. So the crate is complete and we are ready to move on to the next part.